Today we publish a white paper on immigration, a strategy absolutely central to my plan for change that will finally take back control of our borders. Between 2019 and 2023, net migration quadrupled until in 2023 it reached nearly 1 million. That's about the population of Birmingham, our second largest city. That's not control, it's chaos. A one-nation experiment in open...
He thought he was stepping into a routine debate, calm, controlled, predictable, until Aunt Middleton stormed in like a political wrecking ball and shattered the script. One moment Starmer was outlining policy with rehearsed precision, the next, he was scattered across the stage, scrambling to regain control. Aunt Middleton didn't just challenge him, he dismantled his arguments piece by piece, flipping the entire exchange on its head with relentless intensity. What sparked this explosive confrontation? And why does Starmer now tense up at the slightest hint of sharp criticism? Stay with us, because this clash was louder, sharper, and far more chaotic than even Boris Johnson's hair on its wildest day.
What do I know about politics? I know enough about modern day politics to realise that it's not working here in the UK. Hence, the solution is in the title, reform. Political reform is definitely needed. And it doesn't take the brains of Elon Musk to realise that. What do I know? Now, I do know about national security. I do know about safety. I do know about personal safety. I do know about community. I do know about teamwork.
It began like any other slow week in the political swamp, with Starmer likely adjusting another cautious statement and mastering the craft of saying plenty while committing to nothing. Then the ground shifted, the heavy echo of confrontation cutting through rehearsed talking points and fragile promises. Aunt Middleton stepped into the arena, unapologetic and fully loaded with sharp arguments, and the temperature instantly spiked. This wasn't going to be a polite exchange of views, it was a calculated dismantling in real time. The calm vanished, the script collapsed, and it became clear that someone was about to be politically torn apart under the spotlight.
But listen, what I do know is national security, and that's what we're going to touch on very first and foremost. Now, when I spoke to Nigel and the wider team a couple of years ago, for those that don't know, I do a TV show called SAS, Who Dares Wins, where I bring in broken people and I strip them down so they can identify who they are, so they have an identity, and then I build them back up to go out into the world and to achieve. And I got asked a question by Nigel and his wider team saying, could you do that with a broken country? How do you do that? And we went through how I broke people down.
For those unaware, Aunt Middleton isn't just another loud commentator, he's a man shaped by extremes. He's climbed unforgiving mountains, led elite military teams through life-or-death missions, and even survived British reality TV without breaking composure. When he talks about leadership, he's not referring to reshuffling committees or drafting safe statements. He means resilience, accountability, and pushing forward when pressure hits hard. So when this former Special Forces heavyweight looked at British politics and saw Starmer hesitating under the spotlight, he didn't hold back. His response was direct, disciplined, and delivered with unmistakable force.
Lost my identity, I got confused. When you have a nation of confused people, guess what happens after? Frustration. You get frustrated. Like the individual, very much like the individual. What happens after frustration? Anger. Anger, violence. Violence. What's happening on our streets right now? Violence. Or it teeters into civil unrest, which we want to avoid at all costs.
To suggest that Aunt Middleton held back would be like claiming Keir Starmer suddenly discovered unwavering resolve. This wasn't a gentle critique. It was a precision strike aimed straight at Labour's leadership image. Middleton didn't merely question Starmer's authority, he dismantled it with relentless intensity, stripping away the polish and exposing what he framed as hesitation under pressure. It felt less like commentary and more like a full-scale audit of credibility, delivered with the kind of force that leaves no room for comfortable spin or quiet recovery.
I'm not going to avoid any taxes. I'm going to come away from the way that he runs the country. He's got no ambition, he's got no drive, and he's just off-putting. I'm going to spend my time between Dubai and Spain. You know, I'm not going there to try and save money. I won't have an income coming from the UK, so you know I don't need to be here. And
What is it about? But Labour have only been in for I think 2 months. So what have they done so catastrophically wrong?
Well, you're talking about the next budget of what they're going to start rioting.
Let's rewind for a moment to understand the sheer force of this takedown. To grasp it, you have to look at what Keir Starmer actually brings to the leadership table, and critics argue it isn't decisiveness. This is a politician who handled Brexit like someone scanning a menu they're afraid to order from, turning policy pivots into an art form. One week it's bold nationalisation talk, the next it's softened into something barely recognisable. Ask a straight question and you're handed a lengthy explanation that circles back to "we're considering our options." But Ant Middleton doesn't consider endlessly, he acts. He has no patience for political theatre, cautious soundbites, or carefully managed tones that lead nowhere. When Middleton unleashed his critique, it wasn't random outrage, it was a sharp indictment delivered with disciplined force. He portrayed the Labour leader as someone who would pause to draft a strategy memo while pressure mounted, rather than take command. Leadership, Middleton argued, is about resolve when the ground is shaking, not perfect posture while waiting for better polling numbers.
Abused on a regular basis, and I see it on a regular basis, and it infuriates me.
And you have that split second of, am I going to act? Am I not going to act? And that delay is what people see.
Does politics influence the police force?
That's a really good question. 'Cause I'm just a lowly DS, you know, and CID.
Listen, you can't hide here, Mark. Come on, I know you know more.
The media it makes the police and it breaks the police.
Yes, there's going to be bad apples. There always is in any organisation. Yes, we're going to make mistakes. We're only human.
People see that tip of the iceberg.
Yep.
The internet reacted exactly as you'd expect, with celebration and enough memes to power the next 4 election cycles. Watching Keir Starmer get verbally dismantled by Ant Middleton wasn't just entertaining to critics, they framed it as overdue, a jolt to a political system running on low voltage. TikTok flooded with clips of Middleton's blunt remarks layered over Starmer blinking through the storm, while Twitter briefly felt like a full-blown Middleton rally. Even those who'd tuned out of politics since Tony Blair dominated headlines started asking how things reached this point. Critics argue Starmer projects the urgency of a cautious office supervisor, approaching crises with careful wording and measured pauses. Then there's Middleton, direct, forceful, unapologetically clear, drawing a stark contrast. One is seen as methodical to a fault, the other has operated in environments where hesitation carries real consequences. And online, that difference hit like a thunderclap.
Today was Sir Keir Starmer's worst day as Prime Minister. He's currently so toxic that polonium looks at him and runs away. The latest poll put Reform about 10 points ahead, and he's lost the Red Wall. So his team of crack advisors said, go to the Red Wall, win them back, slag off Nigel Farage. They'll love that, Sir Keir. Here's what happened.
I've got Peter from The Guardian.
Do you think one of the problems is that Nigel Farage can approximate talking like a human being, where you just resort to talking points and dodging questions?
He's lost the guy.
Critics argue the contrast couldn't be sharper, while Keir Starmer appears unsettled by direct pressure, such as tough questions over strike support, and Middleton framed the issue as something deeper than policy. For him, it was about conviction, leadership that projects certainty, direction that carries weight, politics with a visible pulse. The critique landed because many voters aren't just weary of controversy, they're fatigued by ambiguity, cautious slogans, and corporate-style answers to human challenges. When Middleton delivered his forceful rebuke, it felt to supporters like a jolt aimed squarely at what they see as creeping mediocrity. Suddenly, Starmer's hesitant moments were back under the spotlight, measured support that seemed to fade under scrutiny, ambitious green pledges that critics say lacked clarity, and an ongoing effort to appeal to everyone that risks resonating with no one.
Johnson had more of a quite a Johnsonian response. He did quite a long post on X, but I think the most intriguing part of that was, to take care is the orange ball chewing manacled gimp of Brussels.
The orange ball chewing.
Orange ball chewing, manacled gimp of Brussels is how he described Keir Starmer. He said, most bizarrely of all, he's agreed that Britain will once again be paying countless millions of pounds into EU coffers for the privilege of becoming the non-voting punk of the EU Commission.
It's a great sentence. You've got to give it to him.
He's got away with words.
Memes quickly painted Keir Starmer as everything from a ghost to a cardboard cutout stamped with a 404 error, amplifying the sense that something vital was missing. When Aunt Middleton weighed in, he wasn't simply ridiculing a rival figure, he was spotlighting what critics describe as a vacuum at the core of a hesitant opposition. The sting carried weight precisely because Middleton has never pretended to be a polished politician. He speaks with the edge of someone who's faced real consequences, not someone calibrating every word for comfort. Blunt, sometimes abrasive but undeniably direct, and authenticity many argue is scarce in modern politics. What made the moment striking was that Starmer appeared outmatched without even sharing the stage. Middleton's commentary detonated like a shockwave in an otherwise procedural debate, forcing even steady centrists to acknowledge the perception problem. It wasn't only about what was said, it was about what seemed absent: urgency, fire, a sense of command under pressure. And in that silence, Middleton's voice carried even further.
And then I got a phone call from my agency saying, Ant, your whole world's about to turn upside down in about 45 minutes to an hour. And I said, what do you mean? And then that 45 minutes, an hour came around. The Sun, the Mirror, the Daily Mail, all had these in place, promptu sort of articles coming out. Ant Middleton's been fired by Channel 4. Ant Middleton, fired because of BLM tweet. Ant Middleton fired because of teen tweet, pandemic tweet. That's what it was all about first.
The real punch didn't come from insults, it came from the glaring truth. Keir Starmer couldn't lead a squad of toddlers through a soft play without a 5-step plan and a mid-activity meeting. Aunt Middleton wasn't just highlighting weaknesses, he was holding up a mirror to the kind of leadership people are desperate to leave behind: calculated, cautious, and painfully vanilla. That roast quickly became a wake-up call. Suddenly, the nation was asking itself what real leadership should look like. A speech generator for the HR seminar circuit, or someone who owns decisions, accepts responsibility, and takes charge. Middleton's verbal strike wasn't merely entertainment, it echoed a broader political burnout. Britain isn't just frustrated, it's exhausted, pacing at 2 a.m., wondering how it ended up with leaders who struggle to motivate a toddler, let alone steer a country.
Me, 12 months, 2 years ago perhaps, about Keir Starmer. Remember, I've been a Labour MP, I've met Keir a couple of times, and I've chatted with him, etc. And I would have said 2 years ago, fairly decent guy, bit to the left for me, but not a bad guy. But now, having seen what's happened since he came to power, I have never been more disappointed. And for him to use the word principles, I think is rich coming from Keir Starmer. I mean, the hypocrisy from all of this, we had to listen to his sanctimonious.
Aunt Middleton's outburst hit a nerve millions have felt silently, gripping their steering wheels in frustration. Is anyone in charge anymore? While politicians polish statements under studio lights, Middleton has led men through darkness, across hostile terrain, carrying the weight of life and death trust. So when he looks at Keir Starmer and says, that bloke couldn't lead ants to a picnic, it lands like a shock to the spine. The problem isn't party lines, it's the human filing cabinets populating both sides, organized, tidy, emotionally detached, only functional once a year. Voters aren't looking for spreadsheets in suits. Middleton brings something they rarely see: raw conviction, forged in reality, not manufactured in a focus group.
Reform UK say you're running scared of them, that you're sounding increasingly like them with some of the policies and announcements you've made recently. This is a speech that was very defensive, wasn't it?
He's lost Sky News.
Me go to Chris Hope.
Chris Hope, GB News. Prime Minister Farage, Nigel Farage, has 5 MPs. You've got 403. Are you panicking because Reform is so far ahead in the polls, it seems? Is he living rent-free in your brain? You went to a state school. Your dad worked in a factory. Your mum worked in the NHS. So why has a public school-educated former city trader got more in common with the Red Wall than you have?
He's got Nigel Farage living rent-free in his head, and just in case he wasn't absolutely sure, He's being told how unpopular he is.
That's why it landed so hard. This wasn't another scripted clash between political tribes. It was a soldier screaming into a room full of dithering bureaucrats, demanding someone, anyone, show backbone before the country drowns in committee meetings. Ant Middleton didn't take down Keir Starmer with stats or policies. He exposed the emptiness behind the carefully combed hair, and the nation noticed. In a real crisis, we don't need endless inquiries or cautious hedging. We need someone who can step forward and command, "Follow me," and make people believe it. Middleton's point was clear: leadership isn't polished, it's earned. It's not about talking the talk, it's about whether anyone would actually follow when stakes are real. He may skip the tie, but he wears integrity like armor. You might not agree with every word, but you know he means it, and in an age of political beige, that authenticity is almost revolutionary.
Live in an island of strangers.
I think our country has benefited over very many years through generations from people coming to the UK, being part of our communities and working in our public services. But I also think that the level of migration needs to be controlled and managed, and it needs to come down.
So we are living in partial island of strangers then?
Well, I think that we're a country that I think have a really strong country.
Are we or are we not an island of strangers, do you think?
No, I think we're a country where everybody, I think, wants to see.
Here's the final strike. If Keir Starmer's leadership were a mission, Ant Middleton would have declared it a failure within 5 minutes, barked orders, and then led the rest of us through a storm with nothing but grit and a compass, and we'd probably follow him. He held up a mirror not just to Starmer, but to every polished, focus group-approved politician who thinks voters can't tell the difference between real steel and empty rhetoric. That reflection was blunt. Here stands a man with no fire, no direction, and no clue how to act in a crisis. A man who treats bold decisions like they might cause a mild rash. No explanation was needed, it was obvious. While Middleton probably returned to climbing glaciers or pull-ups on helicopters, his message reverberated through Westminster: get real or get out of the way. Starmer may remain leader for now, but the moment Middleton spoke, the question on everyone's mind was unavoidable: why are you even here?